All right. I think we could be live. And guess what, guys? We have a very, very special guest, being JCM Berne, everyone. He is in the house with us tonight. And I'm super excited because you might have seen my post earlier today on Instagram. I took a photo of this beautiful book right here of Wistful Ascending. And Joe, this was like my favorite read of the year so far. It just blew me away.
I'm beyond honored. Thank you.
I feel bad though because I haven't reviewed it yet, and I know it's RTC. That's a common thing in the booktube space where read a book, you're hyped up for it. You know what? RTC.
All right. 3 years later, you're looking over your reviews. You see an art. When is this coming? It's fine. It's totally fine.
But I'm gonna keep talking about it because I loved it, and I will get to review eventually. And also, this cover is stunning, absolutely beautiful.
That came out way better than I imagined it would when I hired. So that's J. Caleb Designs, who's just great. I didn't really have a lot of experience with him. I was kind of in a bind. I needed it in a rush. The Wistful Ascending is and there's no hardcover for Partial Function, which is why I didn't send you the hardcover. FYI. It doesn't exist yet. I'm holding out. I'm hoping to do like maybe a special edition one of these days instead of a regular hardcover. But no specific plans. But for Wistful Ascending, that's Chris McGrath. That's the guy who does all the Harry Dresden covers.
Oh,
and, yeah. And that's a good cover. But the late hey Bo, how you doing? The other Hybrid Helix covers are probably even better. I love them. I love Chris McGrath.
And this one right here.
Yeah, I love that.
I didn't realize it until you sent it to me that there's a big shark there in the background. I had no idea.
There's giant sharks in the book, and I told Chris this, and he's like, "Oh, so it's kind of funny, right? Like the sharks are kind of a joke." I'm like, "No, the sharks are dead serious. They're not funny at all. It's like the first Godzilla movie." And he's like, "Oh, like you got to make it scary. You can't make it comedic." And he did. He did a fantastic job. I love that cover.
Yeah,
I love it.
Reminds me of Jaws a little bit, and
yeah, much bigger, but yeah.
So I wanted to say thank you again for joining me tonight. And
of course,
I know we're on the BookBrew, right? I do have a couple brews in front of me. You have anything in front of you? I didn't even ask yet.
I'm low rent today.
There we go.
So,
Bud Light Platinum.
Terrible beer, but it's good. I have very cheap beer tastes, so I'm sorry.
Hey, I know Bo's on the call. He might find this funny. It's like usually I always gravitate towards IPAs.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm picking out a beer for these live streams, and I just can't get past an IPA taste. I never find one that I like. So maybe I like the cheaper beers too. I don't know.
I like cheaper beers, and I'm willing to admit it. It's funny because my wife will drink like a stout, or like a Guinness, and so when we used to be at bars or whatever, when we started dating, I'd always order like a Pilsner or like a Bud Light Lime, and she'd order like a Guinness, and they'd always give me her beer. Like clearly the lady wants the Bud Light Lime. Like no, that's mine. So she would outdrink me. It was kind of funny.
Hey, you have your taste, okay?
Yeah.
I got this one, strawberry lager. And I actually had this on the last stream a few talks ago, and actually it's really tasty. It really surprised me. So
it sounds good. No,
I'm
nice.
Get into it.
I'm drinking out of a glass to be fancy.
Oh man, I was telling someone that I should do that too, because then you can actually see like the color of the beer and all that. Dang it! Look at that. That's a fancy looking glass.
It is. It's my mother's whiskey glass or something.
That's good.
But yeah, this is fine.
Hey, NJ.
Yeah.
So first question.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you. Space Bears. Where did Space Bears, this idea, come from? Because when I first read that, I had to double, like, I listened to an audio. I had to like go back 30 seconds and replay it again. I was like, yeah, that's a Space Bears. What the heck?
So
awesome.
There was some manga. It was a manga called Outlanders that was popular like 30 years ago, like around 1990, and it did this thing that a lot of manga do, which is weird to our taste, which is like there'd be like a spaceship and there'd be all these people on it, and half of them were anthropomorphic animals, and there was no explanation. Like, why are all these people bears or wolf heads or whatever? No explanation given. It was just cool looking, so they drew it. And I always remember that I had an image in my mind of one of these bears with like the shocked faces. It's a bear in like a spacesuit and like on the bridge of a ship, and his mouth was hanging open. He was like totally shocked by something. I have no idea what. I read this 30 years ago. And when I had the scene where Rohan's going up to the ship and he's like looking in the window and he's like tapping on the window, and you can imagine if you're not used to people flying, if that's not part of your culture, your world, you know, and you've come to this, and all of a sudden there's a guy flying outside, like you'd be completely shocked. And this image of the bear doing it stuck in my head. So I was like, they're aliens, let's make them bears. And they were never meant to be like a thing in the series. Like, honestly, like, so there's if you haven't read the book, you know, Rohan goes out and meets these space bears. It's like an event with them. It happens in like chapter 3 or chapter 2, and it's based. And after that, we see them again, but that wasn't originally planned for. I was just like, they're just going to be a throwaway thing that happens, and then they'd be gone. But everyone loved them, so now I have to put them in every book, which is fine.
Now they're coming back. Like, yes.
Did I put enough bears in this book? It's like a checklist I got to go through at the end of the book. Like, is there enough action? Is there enough jokes? Did I have some character development? And did I put enough bears? So I got to go through that and you know, at the end of every book, and make sure I did that before I hit publish. So that was it. There was
in the checklist now.
They're in the check. You know, like I have a pretty strong idea of like what I wanted these books to be and like the tone I want. But people keep saying like, we really love this thing. It's like, well, you know, you can't say no. Is there really enough bears? Yeah, there's never really enough bears. So, and then the bears have been the source of like some of the better jokes in the series. So now I have to keep them in so I can keep the jokes going. So a little bit of comic relief, but not only comic relief. But and then the Russian accent, just they had to, right? You can't have space bears without Russian, you know, and bad Russian. My poor narrator, I'm like, okay, they have to have a Russian accent, but not a good one. It has to be like a bad Russian accent, like a bad actor on like a B class like TV show. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like a bad. And he did it. He did a great job, Wayne. He did a fabulous job.
And that's actually going to be my next question, was because, you know, I listened to the audiobook again. Thank you for sending me that code. And again, it blew me away. His performance is what really also sold it for me, in terms of, like you're just saying, that B-rate Russian accent sounded hilarious and just comical. Well, giving them a little bit of depth too, and just making them sound unique. It was so awesome. So I was going to ask you, how did you find Wayne, right? Wayne Farrell or Wayne Farrell?
Yeah, I think it's Farrell, but I'm actually not sure. I never asked him, and he does the audio, so I don't know. Actually, I could listen. I'm not really an audio person. I did the whole thing through ACX, right? Like, excuse me, I don't know if you've used ACX, but you go on and you put up like a sample of your book. This one, you don't have to do it this way, but you can. You put up a text sample and like 6 minutes worth of reading, and a bunch of narrators just read it and send you an audio clip like through the ACX website, and then you pick one. And I did not intend to have a guy with a British accent. I didn't ask for one, but Wayne was just so good that he won me over. And after that, you know, he had a rate, and we hit the rate, and he did the book. So it was pure luck. He auditioned basically. I'm not an audiobook person. Like I don't listen to him. So I didn't have like a narrator in mind or even a style in mind. Like I don't think that way. So I got very lucky. And unfortunately he's not doing fiction right now. So yeah, he had some things come up, and he may not do fiction again. So I'm like, I have to figure out at some point soon what I'm going to do about the audio for the rest of the series. I either find someone new or wait and hope Wayne changes his mind. I don't really know what to do, but that's my problem.
Well, that is a little bit unfortunate, a little bit sad.
It really is. He did a great job.
The other day, I was looking on Audible, like I clicked Wistful Ascending, looking for book number 2, just you know, see if it's on there. I was like, I don't think it's on there just yet. This would be a good question for tonight. So
I want audio. I'm getting audio done of Partial Function. A friend of mine is doing it. She had some personal things interfere. But that I strongly suspect that'll be out by the end of the year. But she is not interested in taking on the Hybrid Helix. I actually think she'd be good at it because she's good at delivering the sarcastic lines, which is really need for my books. And she did great with Partial Function, the chapter she's already recorded. So I'm hoping maybe she'll have more time. I mean, the problem is she's a friend. She has a real job. It's a lot of work, to record a 120,000 word book. So we'll see.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope Wayne reconsiders. If he does, but the other problem is it's an investment. How much money can I justify pouring into the audiobook or whatever? These are expensive. So
yeah,
the business side is always a complicated thing.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned this not too long ago. You were thinking about maybe you shouldn't have gone down the ACX route for Wistful Ascending. What's your kind of reservations there with ACX?
ACX makes it really easy to find a narrator, and they do the contracts for you, so it takes a lot of the work out of your hands. The downside is you're really stuck with Audible afterwards, right? You can't go wide. You have a limited number of free codes. So I can't do something like on my website, sell the audio and the ebook as a package for a smaller price, which is something I'd be inclined to do. But Amazon doesn't let you make those kinds of choices, right? Okay. Right, the packaging of which I think if I were in charge, right, I would like to sell the audio with I would like to sell you a hardcover and send you the ebook and the audio with it. One price, right? You get $25 to get the whole thing. You can't do that with Amazon. There's literally it's not possible. You can't set it up like that. But I think if I were an indie, if I had a bigger audience, I'd probably leave Amazon and do this myself and do it something more like that, because I think it's fairer to the consumer, right? If you want to immersion read, you shouldn't have to buy at full price 2 full copies of the book. That's my opinion.
I feel like, isn't there, I forget what it's called, isn't sometimes the audiobook discounted on ACX?
There are discounts, right? So if you own I think if you own one, you can buy the other one at a cheaper price. I don't know. I don't buy a lot of audiobooks. I don't buy, but there are limitations that Amazon puts on you, and it's on them. Yeah. You can't change the price of your audiobook on Audible.
It's not. I read that, which is very strange.
They decide, and it's because they want to. They're trying to make sure it's worth a credit, because that's their model, right? With Audible. So I don't like that. I don't like having. Okay, so Derek's confirming if you have the ebook, the audio is discounted. Yeah, but I think the whole thing is. I don't like the lack of control, but on the other hand, with Amazon, it's hard to get away from Amazon. There's such a huge part of the distribution market for indie, and it's also a matter of time, right? If I didn't have a job and I could spend a few hours a day really researching and digging into other markets, I could probably do it, right? But I don't have a few hours a day to do that. I still have a day job and a wife who sometimes needs me to do stuff, move things around the house, and I just moved. So, it's all about, do I want to spend those hours figuring out how to do this myself, or do I want to spend these hours, writing the next thing? I generally lean on the writing the next thing, because that's more my goal, So that's me.
Going to that, I know I have book 1, and you sent me book 2. Thank you again for sending these.
You're welcome.
And there's 2 more out already, right? In Wistful Ascending. Is that the complete series, or is there more coming out after that?
There's a lot more coming.
There's more.
But the intent is, so book 5 is I'm doing the final round, the second to last round of line edits now. So I'm 2/3 of the way through. It's going back to my editor, hopefully by the end of the week. And then hopefully I get a cover in July. That should be out August-ish. I don't have a firm date, but as the book turn 5, Eyes of Empire should be out then. I'm trying to get turn 6 done this year and out before.
This year?
Yeah, that's the plan. Will I make it? Possibly not, but I have an outline. I should be able to write it and get it through editing and get the cover and get it out by the end of the year. That's the plan. I'd like to release 2 a year. So the structure of the Hybrid Helix is always supposed to be a little bit like the Dresden Files, right? Like a bunch of standalones, but they do tell an overarching story, and it's a big one. So my plan was always to go for that, aiming for 20 books ish. So I don't actually have like a plan, like, oh, this is going to be book 16, this is going to be book 17.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I have a story that should stretch that far. So that's the plan. And I'm 53. So if I don't write 2 books a year, I'm not making it to 25. Right? Like I'll be dead before I can knock out 25 books. If I'm doing them like one every 18 months or one a year, it's not going to work. So that's the plan. But I want to tell a big story. There's things you can do with a big series that you just can't do in a single book. Right? You can leave little hints at things, and like 3 books later you reference it, and that careful reader will just, that's an experience you can have reading that you just can't get from like a standalone. And I really love those. I love doing those little things that this is referencing something that happened 2 books ago. I love that. So that's the plan.
That shows you have really good planning on your part too. If you're able to drop little hints in book 1 and then 3 books later, you're kind of touching back to that hint. That's pretty good planning for you for a 20 book potential long series.
Some of it is planning, and some of it is dropping threads where you're not sure how you'll pick them up again later, but they're there to be picked up. like
there.
Yeah, like I really like when there are story elements that you can get someone to sort of accept. And then later on, you're like, oh, but I'm going to actually explain that thing that you just accepted as part of the world building. And there's going to be an explanation for it. This thing that you just like, and you put enough of those in there, and then you can just pluck the threads whenever you want. That's how I think about it.
That's awesome. I think that's a great move. And I might need to pull those threads as well over on my side, because that's good planning.
Yeah, you never want to explain everything, right? I mean, I haven't read your book, but I can think of lots of examples of books where there's, like why are they bears? And like someone will go through 5 books, and then in book 10, I'll actually explain that, and they'll be like, I didn't think you were going to explain that. I thought that was just the thing we had to accept, And when you drop it on them, it's everyone's just it's a good feeling. It's fun.
I think also with you planning such a long series, obviously you have to love your characters, with Rohan especially. And I think you can clearly show that you have some thoughts and some cares towards this character, because he's just so fleshed out. There's so much backstory, and like you just said, there's so much you don't know about him in book number 1. You're just kind of like, okay, he's a super powerful Goku guy in space. And he's basically a glorified bus puller. He just moves and pushes buses around that are spaceships. I was like, okay, I can get with this, right? So I thought it was hilarious how it was initially presented in the story.
Yeah, I really like the idea of because you'll see this a lot, like the sort of retired superhero thing, or the superhero is not fighting crime anymore, and they always seem to have some job where they're just doing something menial in like the comics or whatever. And I'm like, if you have superpowers, like use them. Like if you don't want to fight crime, sure, but like be a construction worker. Can you imagine having like super strength and like carrying like girders up to the top of a skyscraper in your hands, and they don't need to hire a crane because you can just do it in your hand, right? Like that, you can make a lot of money doing that, because cranes are like really expensive, right? And they never seem to do that in like Marvel comics. They never have like the thing go, I'm leaving the Fantastic Four, I'm just going to work construction and make like $1 million a year because I can do stuff no one else can do. So I always like that idea. So I threw it in there because that's how I wrote the book. I just had cool ideas I've had over like 40 years of 35 years of reading comics compulsively. I'm like, I'll throw all that in here and see if I can make it all work together. That was the plan.
Well, one thing that also stood out for me that I didn't realize until a little bit into it was Wistful itself, like the ship. This entire time in the beginning, when Rohan is talking to Wistful, I was envisioning like a crew of people, and he's talking to this crew. And then I was like, oh crap, this is a sentient ship over here. And I was like, wow. I before this, I have not read a book that was like a sentient ship in this manner before, to where they had like their own personality. And I thought it was awesome. Did you read comics back in the day to get this sentient ship idea, or is this something that you knew that you wanted to implement into the series?
I mean, comics have done it. I can't think of good examples right now, but I know like Star-Lord had a sentient ship. This was not the Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a previous character with the same name.
Oh,
I've been reading comics since I was little, so I have a deep knowledge of comics. But like there was a show. Kevin Sorbo was like, it was after Hercules came out, and Kevin Sorbo was like Andromeda. Do you remember the show Andromeda? Or you might be too young for this. It was like a syndicated science fiction show, and he was like, it was like a Star Trek. It was kind of a Star Trek ripoff, a little bit. It was a similar format to Star Trek, but it was Kevin Sorbo, and this ship was sentient, had an AI that would appear next to them as like a hologram. It looked like a woman. I didn't want to do that. I didn't do that, but but the idea, and then I took a lot of my thoughts about AI and AI ships from Anne Leckie, Ancillary Justice, which is the first book in a trilogy. It's like Ancillary Justice, Ancillary. I forget the names of the other books. Really good science fiction, dealing with a lot of ideas around AIs, a lot of ideas around gender. Also, that she was really well known for that. Like the characters all use she for like the default instead of he. That's just their culture. And people, this book came out, they thought it was like crazy. You froze on me. Did I freeze on you?
just for a second here. Hello.
I'm reconnecting.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Live streams, man. Always happens.
Yeah.
It's the AIs. You were talking about AI, and now they're coming down for you.
Yeah.
Here. Ancillary Justice, Sword, and Mercy. That's what you were talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, really good series.
Here we go.
All right.
There he is.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Phone got a little overexcited. So yeah, and then just really neat ideas were like the ship and like a bunch of like the like soldiers on the ship are like one big mind all connected, and then when parts of it are just taken away, they maintain parts of the consciousness but not all of it. And she really plays with these ideas really nicely. So if you look anywhere in Wistful Ascending, you'll find ideas I stole from a bunch of places. I just steal from a lot of places. So very few of my readers know where everything's from, because I don't have a lot of readers who have read all of this weird, like the manga and the comics and the sci-fi that I've read over, a long life of being a nerd. So
I think that's what writing's all about. You pick and choose what you like out of all your favorite stories, and you kind of just mold it into your own. So
yeah, that's exactly how I think of it. I take little things that I really appreciate in different properties, and then I throw them in together and hope it works. Giant monsters, I like Godzilla movies when I was a kid, so I'll put some giant monsters in there. See what happens.
Yeah, those scenes are awesome. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the AI or the sentient ships. I don't know if this was explained in book 1. Maybe I missed it, or maybe you're going to explain it in book 15. How did the sentient ships become like who they are? Were they offshoots, or did they come out of AI from like Earth back in the day, and they grew into their own mind that just controlled the ship itself? Was this explained in book number 1? Did I just miss that?
Not really. So the ships are built, and when a it's technical babble, right? But when you have a brain, a mind, a positron, I call it a positronic brain because it's a term we like from like Isaac Asimov or something, right? But it's a neural net, and you train it the same way we train artificial intelligence today, just much more advanced function of that to make a ship. Sometimes they acquire souls and become alive. And that process of exactly why some things get a soul and some fail. So you imagine a factory with a whole bunch of these things, and they're being trained and they're being exposed to environmental stimuli that are probably artificial, and some of them come to life. And I don't really, the characters in the story don't really understand exactly why. They just know it's a process. Some will, some won't. Some of those souls will be like sort of have more power than others, have more magical power than others, and then they put them in ships, because otherwise ships are just too a ship without a soul is too vulnerable to magical attacks. Someone who's telekinetic can just go reach into a ship with their powers and just like pull on cords and pull on wires, and the ship explodes, right? It's like too sensitive. But if it has its own soul, then it automatically sort of resists that. See, I think about these things, right? It's like, well, what if you have someone with telekinesis, and then you've got a plane flying overhead, and they can just reach up and like mess around with like the flight controls, take the plane down. That all of a sudden people aren't flying anymore. So you need sort of a way out of it. I think about this stuff a lot, maybe more than is completely healthy or normal, but that's the idea.
Well, I love the idea because I super enjoyed it. And once I actually found out that the ship was sentient, I was like, oh, heck yeah, this is awesome.
Yeah, Wistful's a person, and she's old, and she gets her own character arc and character development through the series. Not a huge amount. Like she's not a but that's and she's half the explanation of the title.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's a good title too. Actually, when I was scanning through your Goodreads page, I noticed there was a different version of Wistful Ascending, a different cover that has a slightly different vibe to it. All right, there it is. Yeah. So that's the original cover, I'm assuming. And then you upgraded to the guy who did the Dresden Files, right?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I have a full-time job, right? My goal was not to write so I could feed my family, right? I never really, this is a hobby thing. I was like, and I always liked writing, and I always liked stories. And at some point, I mean, I'd written several novels before, but I couldn't really a long time ago, but when self-pub didn't really exist the way it does today. Like I finished a novel in 98 or 99, one in 2006. Self-pub as we know it didn't exist. So I kind of gave up, and then at some point I was like, you know what, I should try this again. My kids were a little older. I was like very settled in my job, and thank you, Bo. And I said, you know what, I'm going to write this book, and whether it's good or not, I'm going to publish it on Amazon as a self-pub. I'm just going to do it, and I wasn't going to spend a lot of money on a cover or anything, because this was just like, I'm just going to try. And that was the only way for me to finish the book, right? It was to promise myself, once it's done, it's going out there. And enough people liked it that I was like, I should really like put some effort into this and try to do it right. So I didn't really, I didn't get an editor. I didn't really even, it was like draft 3 that I published, like I didn't really learn anything about writing at the time, but then it came out and people kind of liked it. And I was like, I should really try. I should like learn how to write. And so I started taking like courses and like watching like Brandon Sanderson's lectures on writing and like reading craft books and putting my stuff through a writing group, like chapter by chapter, have people really tear apart the lines to try to make it better, try to learn what I was doing instead of just going off instinct. And I spent like a year doing that, got a real cover, like real, like too real, and I literally just sat there one day and I was like, what artists do I like? And I've told the story before, but look up Harry Dresden's book right behind me on the shelf. I take it down. And I'm like, who painted this? And I Googled who painted like the cover to Stormfront. And I was like, and then I emailed that guy and he said he would do it. And I was like, we're done. That was my entire research process. Sold. That was it. I didn't even talk to one other artist, so that's how that happened. But it was probably from a business perspective, it was a poor way to do it. Like what you're doing is much smarter. Get a more polished product. You only debut once, and you're getting a much more polished product out with fanfare, with a build up. Like when I released Wistful Ascending, no one knew who I was, and for 2 years, no one knew who I was. So that's just how it. But that was the only way for me to get myself to actually sit down and crank out the book. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I wouldn't get that.
In terms of, you kind of already answered a little bit of it, where you just kind of put it on Amazon, and then so people found you naturally through Amazon that way, and
almost no one, right? Like a year after Wistful Ascending came out, I don't think I had 40 ratings on Amazon. Maybe a year and a half after, I don't think I did. It was my friends and family, it was like people on Facebook. Some people organically found the book, but it was a very small number. It wasn't. I didn't sell 1,000 books, I don't think. I might have done a giveaway where I got a, if you put it for free, people will just download it, but I don't think of those as meaningful numbers. But the way I got some actual audience was entering Spiffbo 8. And when I entered Spiffbo 8, there was a lot of when Spiffbo comes around, there's a lot of buzz around the books in Spiffbo. People like looking at the covers, like, oh, this sounds interesting. Oh, this. So then I went on Twitter and I found a bunch of people who were talking about Spiffbo, and I'm like, hey, you guys want to read my book? Like, you seem to be talking about Spiffbo. And a guy named Jordan Buxton said, no. Well, it was really a guy who's kind of popular on Twitter, a guy named Miggins. I don't actually remember his real name, but
I've seen
Miggins.
that handle.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And he said, I'll read it. So I was like, oh, I'll send you a book. And then this guy named Jordan Buxton said, well, if Miggins will read it, I'll give it a try. And the funny part is, so then I sent it to Jordan, and Miggins didn't read it for like a year, which is what makes this really funny. So it's all thanks to Miggins, but he didn't actually read the book for like a long time. And when he did, I don't think he was thrilled with it, which is fine. Like, that's totally fine, but it was very funny. And then Jordan liked it enough that he got Andrew the Wizard to read it. And once he read it, he gave me a dedicated YouTube review. Jordan's a great guy. He doesn't have like, he had a channel. This is before he started his channel, and his channels never did a ton with his channel, but he's more of just a reviewer, not just. I don't mean to put it down. But and then once Andrew read it, that got me a lot of traction with the indie community. Because once he got the dedicated review, other people were like, "Oh, I'll try it." And then the guy who was my Spiffbo judge, who cut me from the contest, gave me a couple very positive reviews in his videos. Michael Knipp. He says, "I'm not passing it on, but I really like this book." And you know how it goes. Like, you hear about something from like one place, and you hear about it from another, and then it builds. And now people tell me like, "Oh, I see your book everywhere on Twitter," and I'm like, it's not really everywhere on Twitter, but thank you. But you people get enough impressions, and eventually they're like, well, I'll try it. Fine. Right. And that's my marketing plan, which is not really a plan, but that's what worked. Wow. And it's been hugely gratifying. Like the level of like reviews I get from like people on BookTube talking about the book, talking about it in their recap shows, interviewing me, talk like this. I love it. Like I'm not making money, but this is, I honestly feel very satisfied by that feedback. So it's good.
I had no idea how recent this was for you, because when I first heard of Wistful Ascending, I thought it was like already like super popular in the indie space and people were loving it. And like you just mentioned, Andrew's wizardly reviews. Like, I watched that video like a day or so ago to get a little refresher, because he did go over a lot of the points in the book before we had this chat. I didn't realize that like that was somewhat of the beginning, at least, for this book to be kind of put out into more people's minds.
100%. I think when he put out that video, I don't think I had 50 ratings on Amazon. I don't think I had 50 reviews or ratings on Goodreads. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I'm pretty sure. So yeah.
That's exciting, because when I was looking at it on Goodreads today, I feel like it was like 1,000 people had it in their TBR, or it was on somewhere in 1,000. I was like, this is great.
I try not to. I can't look at that too much. I fell into this trap where I was looking at my sales and my ratings like multiple times per day, sometimes multiple times per hour. And the thing is, it's like an addiction. You get like, and I'm telling you this as a writer. You're a writer. I'm telling you should know this, right? You can fall into this trap where if you open Goodreads and there's like one more review and there's a 5-star rating, it is a hit. It's like a hit of dopamine. And that is very addictive, and it's very tempting to keep refreshing that page. Oh, I sold a copy. Oh, I sold 2 copies. Oh, I sold 3 copies. You keep hitting that refresh button, but eventually you're going to find that you're not selling a book every 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Maybe you will, but you know what I mean? Like, then you get to a point where like there's a day goes by and there isn't a new review or a new rating, and it's like devastating. And I can't do it anymore. So I had to slow down and put it. I literally put myself on a schedule. Like twice a month, I get to look at my Goodreads, and that's it.
There we go.
If it's not those 2 days, I'm not allowed to look. So that helps.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard because I'm a data guy, because I for my day job I work in data all day long. So it's
Uh,
gonna be it's gonna be challenging, but I understand that as well with that dopamine rush because sometimes when you put a video out, or at least for me when I put a video out when I started this booktube thing, and you get people commenting and liking, you're like, oh heck yeah, this is awesome, finally. And then you put one out, it's like, well, I guess people didn't like this one. We'll try again tomorrow.
and if you
So
look at your analytics every 20 minutes, you're going to
yeah,
have these periods of time where like, oh, I'm getting a lot of views, and then you're going to have periods of time where it goes away. And I don't have it wasn't good for my mental health. So
I understand.
yeah,
Like creating your own doom scrolling, but on your own stats.
you really can. I'm not the only one who's suffered from it. So yeah, I don't do it anymore. That's my recommendation to other authors. You need to look. I mean, you need to know if what you're doing is working.
Mm-hmm.
So, but not too much.
So
Please
real
yourself.
quick little pivot back into Wistful Ascending, the story. One thing
Sure.
that I freaking loved, or that I singled out almost immediately, was how witty and just snappy the dialogue was. Where like these people are joking back and forth. It makes you laugh as well as the reader or listener. And I just have to ask you, now that I've dabbled into writing a little bit, dialogue was a little bit challenging for me. Like how did dialogue come to you? Like, did you naturally write these super witty and comical scenes out, or did it take time for you to kind of like work on that into what it is today?
That is probably like comes pretty naturally to me. The dialogue stuff, like I don't have to think about it a lot. I don't really plan it, and I don't really know how I do most of it. Like the jokes and the dialogue just come. The stuff that takes work is the other stuff, like the pacing and the descriptions, the prose. That takes more work and more effort, and it took more training. I had to learn what I was doing. But the dialogue, I just have I think I have an ear for it. Like I can read it, and I'm not literally listening, but I can sort of tell like this doesn't feel quite right. And I'll read other people's stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is too. People often like very common for very beginning writers is their dialogue is too grammatically correct. Like it doesn't sound like people talking, and I can read it. I usually have a pretty good sense of like this. You gotta redo this part because it sounds like you're writing this for your grammar school teacher or something. But the jokes in the dialogue are just by ear. Joe's a natural comedian. Yeah. Bo and I have spent quite a bit of time because we were at Dragon Con last year. We basically hanging out largely together for several days. It's a great time, and we're doing it again this year. So Dragon Con once again. So that was exciting. A blast. I love it.
Do you have a little booth there too?
I don't hand sell. Should I? I don't know. But I don't want to go to Dragon Con to work. Like I don't want to be at a booth and like trying to. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No. It's not a business for me. It's absolutely 100% fun. Like I went to Dragon Con last year, and I had like long conversations with like Ryan Cahill and like Bo and like R. Virdi and like Michael. I'm missing a ton of people, but like Mihir Wanchu, fantasy book critic, and we just hung out and like drank and like talked about like the book world. And I mean, I don't know if I made any sales. I mean, I may have made connections with people who have helped my career, like, but I don't even know. Like, I don't care. I had a really good time, and I'm really glad I get to go again this year.
Isn't that happening like next month, Dragon Con? I think it's pretty soon.
Always the end of August, and it's always Atlanta. Always the end of August. And I didn't think I could go because I was supposed to move this summer, but we ended up moving earlier than I thought. So we moved, like we're done. So I don't have to feel bad about leaving my wife in the new house 2 months later. Like I'm allowed to go, and she's working shifts that weekend anyway. So I'm like, okay, if you're working, I'm going to go to Dragon Con. So I was pretty excited about that.
I need to maybe look into that next year because I have a little one right now. She's only 8 months old, so we're going through some sleep training right now, trying to get her to go to sleep at night. So
I remember Ferberizing my kids. The Ferber method. I don't know if people still use
Yes.
that, which is basically stick them in their crib and walk away. Put cotton in your ears. There's more to it than that, but that was not fun. But I've done.
Have your kids read your books at all?
No. I mean, I'd be happy to. My youngest is 16.
Okay.
So I mean, I'd be comfortable with a 16-year-old reading Wistful Ascending. Like, I don't think it's too adult for a 16-year-old. But none of them are interested. My wife hasn't read my books. She tried to read something I never published. She said she hated it. I figured let's just leave it at that. Let's just move on and not poke that bear. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. She didn't marry me for my writing ability. In her defense, like, when we got married, I wasn't a writer. I mean, I was a guy who had written a couple books many years ago, but she had no reason. We got married in 2018. I wasn't working on Wistful Ascending then. Like, she didn't know what she was in for. Like, that's kind of unfair to her that now I'm like, oh, I'm going to spend a bunch of money every year on book covers, and I'm gonna go away for the weekend and hang out with writers at this con. Like that wasn't what she's. I mean, she's very good. She's supportive. She doesn't complain, but it's also kind of it's kind of not fair. It's not easy. I mean, it could pay off, but
all the BookTube videos praising Wistful Ascending. See.
She doesn't care. Yeah, she really doesn't care. She really doesn't. I've tried that. I'm like, look, honey. And the funny part is, so she's my age. I'm 53. She's my age, and she's a physician. So she teaches residents. So they're in their late 20s, early 30s. So she's our generation. For our generation, like, geeks weren't cool. Like, if you were the person in high school for my generation, right, reading like science fiction books or comic books, you were a geek. It wasn't cool, right? You weren't a cool kid. Now it's kind of flipped a little bit, where like being kind of geeky is kind of cool. So her residents who are like 25, 30, they think it's amazing that I write science fiction books and I have like my own listings on Amazon. I think I'm really cool. My wife's like, how did you become cool? Like, I've known you, because she's known me since high school. Like, I've known you. Oh, you've been a nerd your whole life. Now my residents think you're cool. And I'm like, I don't know.
Times change, man.
Times change. I don't let it go to my head. I don't think I'm really cool, but it's kind of a funny transition in the culture. But my kids don't think I'm neat, so that's fine. But
someday we'll read. We'll get them to read it.
Maybe, and it's fine if they do, and it's fine if they don't. Like, my mom hasn't read my books, and you just have to accept that I'd rather they not read it than like suffer through it.
Yes.
Like, if you're going to suffer through it, then it's fine. Just don't read something else or whatever, or watch a show, whatever you want to do. I don't know. But, yeah, it's pretty funny. Worldcon in Seattle next year will be,
huge.
Will be huge as well. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to make it to Worldcon in Seattle next year, but I'm really going to try. That sounds really exciting. That's the problem with that's not a problem, but that's the one downside to DragonCon this year is a lot of people went to Worldcon instead. So a lot of the people who would normally go to DragonCon every year, they went to Glasgow, and are going to, because it's not the same time, but it's close enough. They're not doing both. It's like Dirk Ashton and a few of the other people in his like crew.
I need to get familiar with these conventions, because I know Bo was asking me a couple of weeks ago, "Is like, you going to DragonCon?" I was like, I don't even know what DragonCon is, so I need to get up to speed on all these cons here, because they sound like a lot of fun.
DragonCon's kind of neat because it's everything. It's huge. It's like 70,000 people, and it's all of the geekdoms. So it's like Star Wars fans and like cosplayers and like manga people and like people into all kinds of stuff. So it's not just writers. Like writers is a very tiny corner of the con, but then all the writers go to one place. We all hang out at the bar at the West End, and it's just fun. Like I said, I got a chance to talk to like people who are
doing what you're doing.
Yeah, but at a higher level and a lower level, like both, right? Like, so both are valuable conversations to have. Like people who are like smaller, maybe have one book out. A lot of people I knew from Discord, people like Bo, critics, reviewers. So, and you hang around in a bar. I mean, here's the other thing. It's like these are my people in a very specific way, and I don't normally get to socialize with them physically. Like honestly, I had never met another writer before DragonCon, or a reviewer, or someone who's the kind of person who would read my books. I had never met. Like I have friends who have read my books because they're my friends, but the people who would picked it up because they just liked reading that kind of stuff. I never spent like an hour with anyone like that, like face to face. But went to DragonCon, it's like
here they all are,
70,000 of them, right? More or less.
Peeps, my friends.
yeah, it was really cool. It's a neat energy, you know, like everyone's geeking out together about all kinds of stuff, but no one's, you know, clearly no one's judging. No one's like, oh, you read science fiction. Like no one in downtown Atlanta is having that thought, right? Because the whole place is dominated by us.
Yes,
so it was cool. It was cool. It was
science
a lot of fun.
fiction is cool. Okay,
yep.
At least it's cool now.
It is cool now. It is cool now. So
yeah. I've been to one convention. It was actually the San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh,
maybe 7 years ago. This is back when Game of Thrones was at its peak, and but at that time I did not watch Game of Thrones, so there are so many fans for Game of Thrones, especially the panel. You're waiting outside overnight for panels just to get inside, just to see the people. And me and a few buddies, we stayed outside on the ground. Super cold weather that night. We used towels to warm ourselves because we didn't bring jackets. We're going to California. We're thinking that's going to be nice and hot. No, it was freezing. But we got into the panel for Breaking Bad, and we saw Bryan Cranston. So was it worth it? I think so.
was Game of Thrones one of your things that got you hooked on the fantasy world or the sci-fi world?
No, it was for me, it was, what was it called? To Sleep in the Sea of Stars, right here. I read that one maybe 2.5 years ago. I was like, oh my God, I love this. And from there, I kind of just, I've always liked sci-fi, like Star Wars and Star Trek and things like that. But for me, reading books physically, it just wasn't an option back then because I had no space. But now I'm in a house where I can store books like this. So I did audio at the time, and I was listening to the Lycanius trilogy, by James Islington, and just going down these super popular, massive, huge authors. I was just going down the list because then I was looking at Brandon Sanderson, not Wheel of Time, Brandon Sanderson, The Stormlight Archive, and I saw the first one. I was like 56 hours long. That's a long book. I was like, I guess it's worth one credit. I'll try it out. And that's when it really just sucked me in. I was like, okay, now I understand. So from there, it expanded to this, all these books here.
2.5 years. You went in 2.5 years. You went from starting to read sci-fi to writing your own cyberpunk novel. That's a very accelerated pace. That's impressive. I mean, because I'm writing books, but I'm resting on something like 35 years of accumulated absorbing stuff, you know. But to go in that quickly, that's really cool. That's really cool. And you got a great cover. I love your cover. That's phenomenal. I love the cover too. Phenomenal. That is gorgeous.
Yeah, that is gorgeous. When I searched just cyberpunk on Instagram, because I was going down the routes of looking for cover artists, and I went down readz.com and readz. I was not envisioning how pricey these covers can be sometimes, and on readz, the quotes were over $1,000 on the low end. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So I went on Instagram because there's some fantastic artists on Instagram as well who might not specialize in creating covers, which is who I found. And her name is Katarina, or Ninja Joe Art on Instagram. And she specializes in cyberpunk art. Oh, this is perfect. So I found
it. Nice. That's a great find.
Yeah,
that's a great find. Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I should use it more. I don't really use my Instagram very often.
Which social media do you use the most? Is it X or Twitter now?
It's probably Twitter. So people hate on Twitter, and I get it. But like, if you are really isolating yourself to the book world in Twitter, it's really nice. Like, book people talk about books, and they're generally pretty positive and supportive, and there's not a lot of like. There's some drama, but most of the drama is pretty low key.
Yeah.
Like, some will say like I've started my fair share of drama. Most of it's pretty mild. Like, you know, there are people who don't read prologues, and other people like, how could you not read a prologue?
Did you start
that? I started one round of it recently.
Okay.
I did. Because someone was talking about it on Discord, on the SIFWA Discord, the Science Fiction Writers of America, which I'm a member of. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but and they got me worked up. So I tweeted something about it. I started a huge wave, which was like it was my high point of my career so far, was starting a huge Twitter war. But like, no one's I don't think anyone's really getting hurt by arguing about the prologues, right? Like no one's. Maybe someone's getting annoyed, but no one's really like, it's not a personal attack on a person. It's not like it's not going to create the same kind of emotions as talking about like political stuff, right? Like, yes. I don't think so. So I was okay with starting that particular Twitter battle, right? Like, it was kind of funny, and it wasn't too serious, and yeah. So I like Twitter a lot. I have a website that I don't really do much with. I was publishing a weekly fantasy magazine that I just had to stop doing. It was taking too much energy, and that was cool, and it was a neat thing to try, and it didn't really work, but that's okay. Like, I like trying stuff, and it doesn't always work, but that's life, right? Like, I have a book. I have a book written that's in editing right now that I may not release because I'm not sure it should be released, and someone will have to twist my arm one way. I had the same problem with Partial Function. I almost didn't release that book. I wasn't sure if people would like it. I like trying stuff. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm vaguely on. I've been a Facebook guy for a long time because I work from home. So I learned a long time ago I need some kind of human contact. At one point before I was dating my wife, I was like living in an apartment by myself, like working from home, and I could go days without seeing another human being. And I got really heavy onto Facebook because it was like my only chance to like connect with flesh and blood people. So yeah, but Twitter's the best place to find me. I like Twitter. I like putting. It's like if I have a funny thought, I'll stick it on Twitter, and you know, I try. Yeah, just try to keep it entertaining and light and mostly amusing, and put a joke on there once in a while. And I try not to get political on Twitter. If you're on my personal Facebook page, that's where I'll put my politics. And that's why I don't I don't ever friend request people in the writing community on Facebook, because I'm like, I don't want to reach out. I don't want to reach out to you because like to anyone else, right? Because I don't want, if you're going to have to deal with my leftist crazy politics, you have to ask for it. I'm not going to ask you to do that, right? You have to initiate. So I'll accept a friend request, but I won't start one.
So I like Twitter too. It was actually where I started. Before I had the BookTube journey, I had my own personal Twitter account.
Yeah.
Back when it was called Twitter, and that's when I was following a bunch of authors, and I thought it was just the coolest thing when it was Brent Weeks, the Lightbringer series.
Yeah,
I said, I love the series, and he like hearted it. I was like, oh, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like Euphoria. Oh my god.
Jenny Wirtz followed me like last week, and I was like, I can die right now. Like, let me get by a truck, I'll be fine. Like I've achieved my life goal. One of my favorite writers from when I was young, supposedly like mentioned on his private Facebook page that he liked one of my books, but I can't read it because it's private, and I can't even friend request him because we don't know each other, and his Facebook setting is set, so I can't even send him. So I'm like now it's my life's goal to like find a screenshot of this and see if it really happened. So
we got to get inside.
I got to get. Yeah. With my job, you think I could hack his Facebook, but I haven't really tried that. So, but yeah, Twitter's a big thing.
Yeah, Twitter is awesome. I know there, like you just said, there's a lot of hate towards it sometimes, but it's kind of funny. A few months ago, I was like, I posted a meme where it's like the world's in chaos behind me, but book Twitter is all nice and they're eating their food while there's a crazy mess happening in the background. I posted that thinking, because I haven't experienced any crazy drama until a week later. There was a huge, like two huge events in the book community. I was like, I quoted that and like reposted and said, I take this back. It's mostly good. Okay.
There's always drama like near us, right? Like what was a recent drama? Some agent posted something about how she had just read a query and she wanted someone else to write something similar so she could read it. And everyone was like, you realize you're just taking this idea from someone who queried you and you're trying to say someone else should write that book. But what about the person who queried you? Like, she lost her job and everyone on Twitter is like insanely mad. And I'm like, it's drama, but it's also not like our drama, right? Like, this isn't my problem or your problem, or
Yeah.
you know, it's a pretty dumb thing for her to tweet, but I don't know. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with Twitter. I have to say, I have a lot of fun with Twitter. And then I consume a lot of Instagram. I look at Instagram a lot. So I look at other people's like your Instagram's good. Andy Peliquin is good. Caden Love. Those guys post a lot. I think they're probably also putting it on TikTok, but TikTok, you know, they have that thing where they're like, how old are you? And you put in your age and they say you can't be on TikTok. So I can't be on TikTok because I'm too old. So I don't know. No, that's not real. Yeah, no, it feels like that, but no, they don't really have that. But I actually was thinking about trying to put stuff on TikTok, getting a video, like my video set up a little better at the new house, and maybe see if I can put out like a short a couple times a day and build. I don't know if I'll do it, but it was an idea.
Yeah, TikTok's the one social media that I do not put a lot of effort into, like at all. I don't know if it's because making YouTube videos is so much different compared to TikTok, where TikTok is like short, snappy videos that let's grab the person almost immediately, where you feel that you need to like scream to grab someone's attention immediately, where my videos are just not that. So I'm trying to figure out that TikTok route, that route, because I know ZSD Amonte, he's cracked the code somehow on that. So I might get some tips from him as well.
Yeah, I feel like if I can take the same energy I put into Twitter, which is short, snappy, grab you little snippets of stuff, if I can turn that into a video, I might be able to get somewhere, but probably not. But I'll try, and then I'll fail, and I'll be like, I tried TikTok, and it's all right. I'm okay with that.
I know we're getting close to time here, but I do have one kind of hot question for you that might put you in the hot seat a little bit. It's in regards to a very popular sci-fi series.
Oh, jeez.
Called Red Rising. Tell me, what's your thoughts on Red Rising?
Okay, so I only read the first two. I thought they were okay. Am I supposed to have a hot take on Red Rising? I'm sorry.
No, I feel like maybe it was like a few months ago we were talking about Red Rising, and you're saying it's too hyped up or something, which I could see that, because the first book.
I read the first
starting point.
I read the first two books with Andy, with A.R. Witham, you know, Andy, author of Blackjack, and we did like 2 or 3 videos for each book on his channel, just kind of chatting about the book. I mean, it wasn't like a big deal, but it was just a way for us to. And I felt like part of my problem with Red Rising is, as an author, the things he does to get you invested in the story are really transparent. It's like if you watch movies and you kind of know the techniques they use to get you invested in the story at some point. Like a lot of movies, you'll be like, oh, I know why they're doing this. And so it doesn't work as well because it's like, I know this trick they're using. Like, oh, like, and I felt that way with Red Rising. Like, oh, yeah, so we're killing, like, you can sort of tell, like, they have to kill the wife so that he's motivated to do the thing and you feel bad for him. And that opens him up for romances later. And you're like, you can sort of see the gears. And I was like, it was fine. I didn't hate Red Rising. I mean, don't get me wrong. There was some cool stuff in there. I also, I'm I'm a little persnickety about like some aspects of world building, where I'm like, this doesn't really make any sense, and it kind of I get stuck on things that don't quite seem to make sense, like the helium-3 or whatever they were mining. I'm like, what do they need that for? It's really bugging me.
I kind of forget. Yeah, why did they need that?
They never said. That's what bugged me. Didn't really make sense, right? Like I need a little more. But on the other hand, like you have to look at those books and say, like, okay, so what he wrote didn't quite work for this guy, right? But clearly, so he could have written a book that I would have liked more by adding certain kinds of exposition and some more world build, some more information. I made a fatter book that would have moved slower, explained more things. I would have liked that more. But would he have sold as many copies?
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I'm not saying that he made the wrong choices. He just didn't really write the book for me, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with that. But I always try to, part of it's author brain. Like, since I've been writing, I look at books in a different way than when I was just reading them. Like, I always look at, like, what are the choices that the author's making and why? What are they trying to accomplish with this? Mm-hmm. What audience are they trying to reach? And I think about that. And I didn't think about that 5 years ago. I never did. Right. That wasn't part of my, like, process of absorbing a book. I would read the book and how much do I like this? That's all. That's where my brain ended, right? But now I look at them like, why are these choices being made? What's the point? What's the author trying to do? How are they executing it? That's really forefront of my mind, because as a writer, that's how I have to look at my own stuff. And you know, he clearly reached a huge audience, so you know, he shouldn't be listening to me about it.
A part of that for me was the audio version. Again, you know, I'm a big audio guy, and the narrator also was a fantastic performer, which I think he was. Maybe someone in the comments will know, but I feel like it was like a Scottish or Irish accent. I'm not sure, but it made the main character just have like a really funny accent to all the little mannerisms and like the quirks that they have, and like Severo, like whenever you say boyo, and he just like made it just come out and feel lifelike.
Yeah. So what's the main character's name? I forget the guy's name. Okay, so Darrow, it really bugs me. Darrow's coming from like terrible poverty and a terribly oppressed group, right? Darrow comes out, he's got this system, he's got this plan, and then people come up to him and he like falls in love with this girl and he makes these good friends, and then he puts the whole plan at risk over his friendship and his horniness. And I'm like, that might be realistic, but that's terribly disappointing to me that this is presented as like a heroic character when he's putting everything like this, the future of his civilization, of like his people who are horribly oppressed. He's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean anything if I don't have the love of what's her name, right? The Mustang or whatever her name is.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like these people killed your wife. They torture your entire like family and clan. And like you're saying, it doesn't mean anything if you don't have money. Yeah, it means something. It means a lot, even if you lose Mustang. So yeah. So I'm a difficult reader. Like I have I'm very picky, and that's why I write. I'm always writing because I will find something that I really like, but it'll do something that bothers me, and I want to fix it. Mm-hmm. Wistful Ascending was written because there's a thing that happens in Invincible that bugged me. That was the genesis of the whole series.
Wow.
There was one thing in Invincible that is not in the. Have you read Invincible? Okay, so it was a comic. Now it's a cartoon on Amazon, which is really good. They did a great job with the cartoon. There was one thing that happened in a late volume, bugged me. I wrote the whole Hybrid Helix because I'm like, this was wrong. This was just. And it's a tiny point. Like, it's not important, but it bugged me.
Now we got 20 books coming out of it.
Yeah, now you got 20 books coming out of it.
It's a win. It's a win.
Yeah, I get it. Win for I don't know. It's a win for someone, I hope. But yeah. So
I think I had a fantastic time with you tonight. I
gotta ask you one more question. What's the theory?
Bibliotheory? It's what I'm thinking, or what's my ideas, or what's my thoughts on whatever book I'm reading.
Okay. So it's not a singular theory about books. At least not yet. I was curious. Okay.
Oh, really? The channel name where it came from was I was watching another YouTube channel called Star Wars Theory, where he just talks about theories on particularly just Star Wars only, and I was like, all right, what's another word for book?
Yeah,
Bibliotheory. Here we go.
that's
And
good. That's
then
good. That's good.
that's
That's
where
good.
the channel name came from.
That's good. I like it. I like it because I'm always trying to work on my like theory. I do have like and it's not there yet, but I'm working on trying to like why we read books, an overall like thing to explain the whole or why we read fiction. Anyway, I'm not there yet. When I am, I'll release a video about it. Not
That's
yet.
that'll be a good video. I like it.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Well, thank you so
Well,
much
again,
for having me.
thanks for sending me these amazing books
Oh,
right here. They
yeah.
look fantastic, and I'm
I'm glad.
especially excited for this one as well because that cover is just freaking stunning. And I mean, when's the last time I've read a book that has a dinosaur in it besides
Yeah.
Jurassic Park? So that's exciting.
Kung Fu dinosaurs.
So
Yep.
uh,
I
before
hope
we
you
go,
enjoy.
is there like a spot for where you want your or anyone who watching this up until this point to go to you? Is it to reach out on Twitter, go to your website, or
I
just
have a
buy your
website.
books on Amazon?
You can buy my books on Amazon. My website, jcmberne.com, so it's not hard to remember. And my Twitter is at JoeBurn1. Number one. I don't know.
There we go.
I had that before I picked my author name. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So reach me any of those places.
Well, please do. Again, I had a fantastic time.
Thank you,
Wistful
Aaron.
Ascending, top read of the year so far, everybody. So go read it if you have not read it.
Thank you. You're too kind.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Keep reading. Peace.